So this will be a little bit of a longer video than the last few. Well, one, we have stuff to talk about that's interesting and fun, at least to a degree. Um, so really, what I want to get into on this video is what I think are the immediately apparent clear differences between Darren Rizzi and Dennis Allen, but largely, as you can tell from the title of the video, really in the context of how it exposes Dennis Allen as a head coach. And then at the end, we'll kind of talk about what that reaffirms about Mickey Loomis. Um, so I kind of want to start with the first component, which is I think it's the simplest. I think it's the easiest. I think it's the most obvious. Um, it's accountability. Uh, Dennis Allen loves buzzwords. He loves coach speak. He honestly sounds like a poorly trained LLM chatbot that just digests coach speak and spits out stuff to try to sound in control and intelligent. Rizzy's a little bit different. The One of the ways we can immediately tell that Rizzy actually means the accountability stuff is the specificity with which he speaks. Referencing specific players in specific contexts, specific things that he wants to happen in specific ways, high level concepts around approach, but then also solutions and what they're doing to try to address those things. That all comes down to accountability, organizational accountability, not I'm going to throw my quarterback threw Chris Olave under the bus, and I got to protect my handpicked quarterback, so let me throw Chris Olave under the bus as well. Not that kind of accountability. Chris needs to be accountable. You shouldn't be jogging on that route. It's clearly his fault. Not that stuff. Not the fake stuff. But the coaches need to have a better plan. We need to rearrange things. Um, such and such player made this mistake. They did this other thing well, but we really want to do this better. Um, Even just coming down to, and this is really honestly the biggest area of accountability where it just didn't exist with Dennis. It just didn't. Is when you hear Rizzy talk, and this is some people hear this and they'll think it's silly, but it's not when you understand that it projects to an organizational level, because that's what a head coach in many ways is a CEO. You're running a multi million, in many cases multi-billion-dollar organization, and you are, if not the CEO, you're the head of the biggest department in the company. Um, and you hear things like Coach Rizzi saying, "Hi, Midas." Everybody say hi to Midas. So you hear things like Coach Rizzi saying, "Oh, well, we decided we wanted to rearrange the lockers so that players in position groups would be sitting near each other and allowing them to socialize and build those bonds." And it doesn't sound like the biggest thing in the world. It's like, well, look, they practice together, they hang out together, they're all in the same locker room. What does it matter? You'd be surprised. Um, Even if you go to most offices, they will put departments in the cubicles together and even in cubes together. And there's some intentionality behind that. It allows for better communication. It allows for sharing of information, training, in a good way, like building of cliques. And we even saw in a meeting earlier today, or sorry, a press conference earlier today, Rizzy talked about, like, he's going to shuffle that around. He wants guys to meet other guys, to talk to other guys, to get other guys' perspective. It's not just the football aspect of that Rizzy is looking at. It's also the interpersonal aspect. And that's one of the areas where Dennis Allen was the greatest failure, is understanding that people are people. And it sounds like a smart ass expression, but I promise you it's not. It's the vast majority of managers who fail, and it's really what Dennis Allen was. He's a manager, he's a coach, he's a leadership position, an authority figure. A lot of times, it comes down to some combination of ego, insecurity, and not having an understanding, and intuitive or otherwise, of interpersonal communication. Rizzi seems to very clearly have that. I mean, even when he was just the special teams coach, players had Merry Christmas shirts. You could tell that he was someone that had good vibe with the team, and we'll get into some of that stuff here in a second. But like just to kind of to tie up the accountability portion, because all this does tie into that. It's not just that Rizzi's doing these things and doing them with intentionality, and doing them with a focus and a purpose and an understanding of the cascading ripple effects. I'm intentionally buzzwording this, guys. Um, that come off from doing these things in the right way and creating these environments. The bigger reason I'm pointing this out in this part of the video is in its first week on the job, Darren Rizzi identified some key core areas where the team was struggling, not properly, officially warming up and making sure that their bodies are ready to go before practice, making sure that the players are near each other even during their downtime so they can interact, so that younger guys can go to a vet and go, hey, when they were coaching this, like, I didn't really get that. What did he mean? You're exponentially increasing the opportunity for those conversations to happen, for guys to get better, but also for them to bond and develop a community. And then also just like flat out like the actual accountability of guy makes a mistake, you hold guy accountable, guy does well, you call you praise him, like you do both. You be honest, you be real. It's not about politics, it's about like facts, facts over feelings. Rizzi understanding in just 1 week, these are areas of weakness, these are areas of concern, these are things that need to be addressed, and addressing them. That's accountability. That is organizational accountability. That is understanding that I, as the head coach, have the responsibility to get problems fixed. And to a large degree, it is irrelevant of whose fault the problem may or may not be. My job is to ensure that the problem is resolved. That's leadership. Now, it's also leadership, and this is another one of the areas where, again, we're only a weekend. I want to be very clear on this part. I'm not saying Darren Rizzi is the next Sean Payton, the next best coach in franchise history, a generational coach, someone who's going to help revolutionize the league and bring in a golden era and be our coach for the next 10 or 15 years. I'm not saying any of that. Who knows? There's way too soon to say any of that. He's been here for a week. But in that week, I'm really more talking about the things that he's exposed, as strengths of his, because he's actually showing them, but in this particular video, really more how he's demonstrating in real time, very obviously, the reasons why Dennis Allen was never a good head coach, why he's never been a good head coach, and why he will never be a good head coach. Because he doesn't do these things. He's not accountable. He doesn't preach accountability. He doesn't enforce accountability. He doesn't create accountability because he cannot accept accountability. Dennis Allen always blamed the players for everything. Dennis Allen always pointed the finger at someone else. This was the offense's fault. This was this person's fault. That was that person's fault. It was never Dennis Allen's fault. It was never Dennis Allen making adjustments. It was never Dennis Allen going, wow, my scheme really seems to get annihilated in these situations. Let me look around the league and see what other coaches are doing and see if I can add some things or adjust some things to do better against these things that just consistently kill me. Dennis Allen doesn't do any of that because he's not introspective, because he doesn't, to quote some friends who have a much larger channel and podcast, self-scouting. That's accountability. That's organizational accountability, not just personal, although Dennis Allen certainly was allergic to personal accountability as well. Rizzi isn't. Rizzi calls those things out. Immediately, his first focuses have all been organizational. And leading from that, and again, don't please do not underestimate how important these things are. Another area where you can clearly see Darren Rizzi has a big difference from Dennis Allen. It's respect. And just like the accountability thing, it's in both directions. The defensive players, when Dennis Allen was the defensive coordinator, they respected Dennis Allen. Some of them even liked Dennis Allen. I think some of them still like Dennis Allen. Um, I mean, the guy doesn't have much personality, at least publicly, so I have no idea if he's likable or not. I don't like Dennis Allen because he made my favorite team bad. But, like, the players seem to, and they seem to respect him, but he never respected them. And I made a video about this, a while ago, and you can check that out if you're interested. Just as far as like the myth of Dennis Allen and all the things he supposedly did great, but if you really look at it in context, didn't. One of the key things on there was about maximizing players. So part of respect is being able to go to someone, especially a professional. Hey, you know, uh, just as an example. Okay, Marshawn, you're borderline, not even borderline, absolutely, definitively elite in man coverage. You seem to be making a lot of mistakes when we go to zone. Why? What do you feel is the problem? Is it the verbiage in the defense? Is it the keys that we're going off of? Is it creating confusion? We're seeing, like, I can see one, two, three things technique wise that you're doing, but I want to have a conversation with you. Why are you doing those things? Here's the thing about most great players. Great players want to be coached because great players want to be great. What great players won't respect is someone who doesn't respect them. When you resort to, you know, hyperbolic BS and platitudes and generalities and coach speak and throwing people under the bus and those types of things, all of which Dennis Allen did, you lose players' respect and you create an environment of us versus them. What we've already seen Rizzi do is talk about accountability. And again, don't underestimate some of this stuff. It's not just rah, you know, hustle culture, platitude bullshit. It's when you're talking about building a culture, it's real. When Rizzi talks about 1/11th, he said that for all three units and universally. And it's not just showing a real understanding of the game of football, that it's a really in most ways the ultimate team game, but it's acknowledging that everybody is accountable for their component. That not only puts people in a position to be a star in their role, but also adds the accountability, but the respect of that role. That if you're running a clear out route on offense, yeah, you're not in the progression. But if you don't run that route properly, you don't help your teammate get open. If your teammate doesn't get open because the coverage doesn't shift the way the play is designed for it to shift because you're jogging through your route, it's your fault we didn't convert the third down or we missed out on a big play or so on and so forth. You are 1/11th of this equation, and your 1/11th hurt his 1/11th because he ran his route the way he should run it, assuming you were going to run yours. So accountability leads into respect. Respect for yourself, respect for your profession, respect for your teammates, respect for your coach, and invert it, respect for your coaches, respect for your players, respect for the process, and respect for them as people, as individuals. Oh, I just come in and say the same thing. Play Saints football. Hey, dude, you've been the coach for 3 years. Saints football is loser ball. Because let's have a reality check here, just really quick. On that note, this is part of the difference between DA and Coach Rizzi. Watch all of Coach Rizzi's press conferences. It's about what they should be doing, what they could be doing, what they are going to do, and when there are problems, what they're going to do to address it. Anytime anything went wrong for Dennis Allen, Everything was always about they need to do better. It's not Saints football. It's big picture, platitudes, coach speak, very rarely specifics, or when it was specifics, it was calling out specific players and blaming them. Like, dude had a hate boner for Kendre. Those things add up because you don't have accountability. You have the opposite of respect. You're disrespecting your players. You're disrespecting the office. You're disrespecting everybody involved, especially the vets who've been around for winning, the vets who were played under a real head coach who had an attention to detail, who demanded everybody not just respect each other and respect him, but respect the job, respect the responsibility, respect the paycheck. Like sometimes that's part of the conversation, bro. You got 7 figures on your tax return. Respect the paycheck. Respect the fans who paid their money to give you that paycheck. Do your job properly. That's and when you maybe not phrase it that combatively, although sometimes you kind of have to. But when you're upfront, when you're clear of, hey, this is your responsibility. Hey, Derek, maybe don't try to kill your teammates. By the way, for the Derek Carr's a great quarterback, man. He's awesome. Folks out there, I got a newsflash for you. He has a few plays in games that make you think he's a great quarterback. A couple of those deep balls were beautiful. Derek Carr on play action deep passes looks like a great quarterback. He really does. Go watch the rest of the game, like outside of a few of those great throws, and you really see the reason why a lot of people, especially people who really know what to look for, want him out of here. Because he barely raises your floor, but he crushes your ceiling. Go look at that pass to Foster Moreau. That should have been a touchdown. But I don't just want you to look at the fact that it was a missed throw. Look at where the throw was missed. It was missed high and behind him. So Moreau had to lean back and up. It's the same thing that got Michael Thomas hurt. It's the same thing that got Chris Olave hurt. And if there had been a defender in position to make a play on that, it would have got Foster hurt. Because when Carr misses, he often misses high and he frequently misses behind. And it's not that it's every pass, but these issues consistently pop up. Now, Rizzi didn't do it in the locker room, or sorry, didn't do it at the media, but I'd be willing to bet, based on all of the other evidence we have, that that did get brought up in a team meeting of, hey, on these types of plays, if you're going to make that throw, it's got to be here, not here. Protect your teammate. And also give the guy a chance to make a play, because if that ball is inside, and better yet, inside and out front, Foster has a chance for a touchdown there instead of a blooper. That's not on Foster. That's on the quarterback. So we've talked about accountability. We've talked about respect. I'm going to wrap this up here in a second because really it's the interpersonal stuff that we're going to see the biggest difference between DA and Rizzi after 1 week. But it's so obvious and so blatant in the phrasing, the verbiage, but again also the action behind it and the intent behind the action. And we know the intent behind the action because he's actually explained it, which Dennis Allen could never do because all he had was platitudes because he didn't actually know how to lead, how to build a culture, how to build a structure, how to do any of those things, which brings us to our final piece of conversation. And I'll probably do a separate video just about this at a little closer to the off season. But this is also just a reminder that a lot of this comes down to Mickey Loomis. Mickey Loomis chose Dennis Allen. Mickey Loomis, when all of the players were ready for Dennis Allen to get Das Boot out the door, went to the players and said, "He's our coach. He's a great coach. You guys don't know what you're talking about. Step in line or step aside or whatever idiocy he said while smacking 12 pieces of gum between his lips." Mickey Loomis has all the same problems that Dennis Allen has. Mickey Loomis doesn't respect the process. Mickey Loomis doesn't respect what it takes to be successful as a GM in the NFL. Even the most hardcore Mickey Loomis defenders for years, what was the always response? When we would talk about a bad draft or bad free agent signings, they go, "Hey, that's on Sean. Mickey's just an accountant." Yeah, guys, that's the problem. Your general manager, forget whether or not Sean wants to have a ton of input on these things. Your general manager is unqualified and incapable of providing valuable input on these things. Why did it take until Jeff Ireland came in 2016, really towards the end of 2015, I believe, but 2016, no, yeah, 2016 and then into 2017, to revamp the entire scouting department, which probably needs more updates again. It shouldn't have taken that long to know, like, hey, these scouts are not good. Our boards are not good. We are not drafting good players. Our drafts are bad. Our players are washing out. We need to replace these scouts. We need to replace these assistant coaches. We need new things on the team. There's no way Mickey Loomis had those conversations. And here's the thing, even if Mickey tried to say, oh, well, I said those things, which he didn't, but everyone knows you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So even if you did say those things, an actually competent football person, which Sean unequivocally was, is not going to listen to you. So Mickey Loomis wasn't accountable to the players, wasn't accountable to Gail or Tom, was sure shit not accountable to Sean. He held Sean and Drew held up and hid so much around this organization. But so much of this comes back down to Mickey. Yeah, okay, cool. He's an accountant, but that's not his job. That's not his role. And we already know now, like all the accountant stuff is really Kai. Kai Harley's the genius, not Mickey. He might be the consigliere, but he's not the brains. It's not what he's doing. There's no accountability, and there's no respect. He doesn't respect Gale. Did you see the statement he released when they fired Dennis Allen? Dennis Allen's a fantastic NFL coach. No, he's not. He's like the third losingest coach of people who've coached enough games to qualify in the history of the league. He's not even a fantastic defensive coordinator. He's never produced a top 5 defense. I don't even think he's produced a top 10 defense. You know, yards, scoring, absolute, like you pick your metric. Never produced anything in those areas. Had lots of draft picks, had lots of investment, had lots of free agents, had lots of capital, got given all the things he could have. Got Ellis in Atlanta. He's playing well. Zach Bonds in Philly have an amazing season. It's funny how all these guys starting to play better when they get away from Dennis Allen. Like, what's the guy he can hold his hat on? Marshawn? Yeah, he was the number 11 pick in the draft, dude. He's supposed to be good with or without you. That's why you take those guys in those spots. They're supposed to be elite no matter what, and he has been. What was your big way to maximize Marshawn? Play sides and never put him on the hot receiver and slash or the number one receiver of the other team so that you could actually game a schematic advantage? Where's this great coach I keep hearing about? Mickey doesn't have accountability. Mickey thinks like he's a little mini mob boss. Mickey called the fans broke. The fans aren't broke. The fans are sick of you. I mean, we might be broke too, but that's a different discussion. It has nothing to do with football. Like that's where it all really comes down to. But again, my tone doesn't necessarily sound this way, but I am framing honestly most of this in a positive light from the perspective of a lot of people have been calling for Dennis Allen's job for a long time. Many of us didn't want him hired in the first place. Some of us have been calling for Mickey Loomis's job for a long time. But some of the benefits of what, even just in 1 week, of having Coach Rizzi out there, is it is showing in very, 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 very clear terms what the problems are. There's no accountability, or there was none for Dennis Allen, and there isn't any from Mickey Loomis. And there's no respect. You don't respect the players, you don't respect the process, you're not accountable to anybody, and you don't care about what's actually best for the football or most likely to help the team win. You're not building a culture of winning and accountability and respect for yourself, your teammate in the game. You're building a culture of not my fault, not my job, not my problem. It's not me, it's them. And you're not going to win. So whether he ends up being the future of the organization or not, there's a long way to go to see if that's going to be the case. I just want to thank Coach Rizzi for making it blatantly obvious how bad these clowns were.